Welcome to Bigger, Better, Stronger, Faster. Today we have a member of our community with a giant heart to give back and revitalize the West Side of Marietta. Father of two, husband. Welcome, Jackson Patterson.
Thank you for having me.
I really appreciate you coming, man. I know you're a busy man. You do all kinds of stuff. When I met you, it was through a basketball program, and you impressed me tremendously. I watched you coach some kids that, didn't know anything about each other. We only had 8 weeks to, get them together and try to teach them something. And out of all the teams, in that league, and out of all the leagues that I ran at Movement Fitness, your teams were often the most impressive, and the way they worked together was definitely the most impressive. The other thing I always like too is how you got them to rally around, that idea of team, which I know is super hard to do in 8 weeks with a bunch of kids from every walk of life,
Yeah, from different age groups.
Yeah, different age groups, different income levels. There's so many things that can, divide kids and, make them choose, not to get along. And I was impressed with, how quickly you were able to get them, to work together. And I'm pretty sure you beat my team a couple times, which was not cool.
Yeah, well, there at the end, it come down to your team and my team, and it was crunch time there at the end, and that was a really big success.
That was fun. Yeah, I had a ton of fun with those kids, and I'm trying to remember a number of their names. I'm not even going to try because it's been too long, but I know we're going to see them in the future because they were stars for sure.
Yeah, they was up and coming. It was definitely impressive, and they caught on so fast. They really listened and dialed in when you wanted them to. They're kids, and you always have that moment of kid, but overall they was really fun to work with, I'll tell you. And that's part of, moving forward with teams and getting prepared for the next level is start at them basic fundamentals to be pushed on to the next group. So that coach ain't left in the dark when he's like, do you know any of your basics? And when kids say no, then that's an extra challenge for the coach ahead of you. So I always try to, coach them ahead.
Yeah.
That way they're prepared for the next level of basketball.
I definitely think that's important. I've tried to talk to the varsity coach here in town and make him realize that he really needs to be involved with these youth leagues. If he's not, then how are these kids ever going to know what he expects by the time they get to high school? And by the time they get to high school, they should already know what he expects.
Absolutely.
And his job would be dramatically easier. And all it would take would be a few visits to, maybe the sign up, day of youth league or one training day of youth league or whatever. It wouldn't take much effort. And I also think that would, really benefit basketball in Marietta. I'm not impressed at all.
Yeah. I'm not either. We should definitely have more leagues going. We definitely got talented individuals here, whether they're rich or poor, that bring a lot to the table. I have a kid over on the west side that I won't mention his name, but he's he's shooting the lights out anywhere he shoots, but he's a poor kid, and his family's he's had a rough upbringing, so they don't they've not graduated school or played any sports, so they don't know the know-how to get him in there.
Right.
So I've kind of connected him where he needs to be a little bit, because I was dumbfounded of his pure talent that's getting overlooked. You know what I mean? And honestly, there was a point in time where I had said, like, this boy is going to go somewhere if somebody recognizes him And I think hands down, what I've seen in this town, I think he would give kids his own age and full grown men a run for their money.
Nice.
So, you know, talent like that shouldn't be overlooked, you know, and that's that pure raw talent. He's at the park every day just shooting hoops. And I mean, you get him on a court with a little bit of basic fundamentals and a little bit of training under him.
Yeah.
I think he'd be a rock star.
Yeah. You know, I think one of the things that, you know, a lot of the kids in basketball around here need, honestly, better training, you know. And yeah, I don't know. I watch a lot of games, you know, and a lot of the school games, and I'm impressed with some of the other towns that are close by. I have yet to be impressed with Marietta and the way, you know, they run their offense, their defense, you know, where players are being, you know, positioned with, you know, their size and you know, make and model, basically.
Right.
And I'm not all about, like, you know, if you're this size, you need to be in this certain position, but it's probably a good idea to start there.
There's no textbooks of basketball.
No, definitely not a textbook. Definitely not. And but you know, there is fundamentals.
There is.
You know, and there's also fundamentals in positioning a player. And you know, just because a player's 6'6" and can dribble doesn't mean he should be point guard.
Right.
You know, he should probably be a forward or something. But you know, I'm starting to see those players, you know, put into, you know, positions they just shouldn't be in, you know. And then the other thing I know you'll agree with me on is that the other thing I see in Marietta a lot of is you know, if you're paying a whole bunch of money to the boosters, your kid's gonna be playing.
That's a sad fact.
It is,
and that leaves kids out that has just sheer more talent.
Absolutely, I see it. You know, and I see them sitting on the bench, and I almost want to cry for them. You know.
Yeah, because that's wasted talent.
Absolutely,
that could be used elsewhere. And them are the kids I want. You know, them are the kids that's the underdog that's sitting on the bench and getting no play time. That's the kid that usually excels what I've seen in a regular game by just extracting them from that setting and put them in a new setting and give them the ball and just say, show me what you can do. It's not an embarrassment. I want to evaluate you.
Yeah.
And I've done that with kids so many times, pulling kids off benches and things and like, just come play for me a little bit. And them kids now are really laying it down up in Waterford or Fort Fry. And
nice.
You know.
Yeah. I agree. I'm going to go to a question that I had wanted to ask you because we're kind of leaning towards that in this conversation. So when you helped me out with my basketball league, I know we talked a little bit about your past. You kind of, you know, let me understand that it was a little bit colorful. Mine's a little colorful as well. I know that it has something to do with your ability to bring those kids together. And so I'm super curious about it. Tell me a little bit about it if you don't mind.
Yeah, colorful is a good word. We'll just say colorful.
Yeah.
You know, I guess it all begins when you know you've hit the rock bottom part of life. And I mean, there's a difference in just saying I hit rock bottom and knowing you hit rock bottom.
Yeah.
You can say it all day long. I hear people that today that's living swell that say, "Oh, I've just hit rock bottom," and it's like, no, you haven't. No, you're not even close. Right. You're having a frustrating day. That's what you're having.
Yeah, yeah.
But you know, when it really started hitting me. I was released from the penitentiary, and it was kind of strange because, you know, I'm like, what now? What? I'm released to nothing. You know, I don't.
Yeah.
Very minimal resources.
Yeah.
You know, homeless. There is no homeless shelter here in Marietta at all, or resources to make you start, you know, gradually helping you out. Because who wants to look for a job when you're sleeping under the bridge?
Yeah. That would be tough. I can't
You
even
know,
imagine. Yeah.
and that's where I started, was right underneath the train bridge. And,
Yeah.
I was an addict, and I just, one
What about your
day,
parents? Were they?
they was parents.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
can't, my father, he lives in Canton, Ohio, and my mom, she did the best she could
Yeah.
with what resources she had. But, a young boy, teenage boy with a single mom is try and
bet.
keep me locked down, and I'll
Yeah.
climb out the window.
Yeah.
You
yeah.
know what I mean? And that's the attitude
Brothers
that
and
I
sisters
had.
at all?
Yeah, I've got
Okay.
a sister,
Sister,
and,
nice.
and we're in communication pretty good. But,
Yeah.
she did her thing and I did my thing. But, they was involved a little bit, but after a while they washed their hands of me, which
Yeah.
I completely understand. You can't help someone that don't want to help themselves. So,
Boy, that's a true statement.
and I
Yeah.
got that statement, and it hit
Yeah.
me one day, and I was sitting in my tent underneath the train bridge, and I'm like, man, this can't be it. This can't be it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? This can't be all of life right here. I'm watching new trucks go across the bridge and new cars and people walking, and I'm like, what happens if I seek it out? The courts ain't putting me in there. I'm not getting ordered to see a therapist. What
Yeah.
happens if I just see him free willy-dilly?
Right. Yeah.
So I did. I walked in L&P Services, and I said, I think I need to talk to somebody. Which really transgressed into, I was always pointing my finger at everybody else. It was always somebody else's fault. The government, my mom and dad, or friends, or,
Yeah. I'm familiar with that. I did that too.
things
Yeah.
like that. And what's funny is I used to make the comment, I was like, why does the police always mess with me? Why are they always messing with me? And I said, well, now I know why they're messing with me. I've got drugs in my pocket. Here I am, 1 o'clock in the morning, standing on Front Street.
Yeah.
With this town rolls up at 10 o'clock at night. So
Yeah,
here's
yeah.
a person standing, on Front Street at this hour at night. No wonder they're stopping me.
Pretty obvious now, I would imagine. Yeah.
And so it hits me now. It's like, that's why. If I wasn't doing that stuff, I'd have never got bothered. And
Yeah.
once you start building that repetition of getting caught with, drugs all the
Yeah.
time,
They're just looking for you.
then they know, they're not dumb by any means.
Mm-mm.
And there was times that I would try and lie, do you have anything on you? No, I don't. And then they would be like, well, when you go to jail, they're going to search you.
Yeah.
And I remember being in the back of a police cruiser trying to eat it before I got to the jail.
Yeah.
Because I thought that they wasn't going to take me to jail. Ends up that I was going to jail.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they definitely caught me in the act of eating it. Thankfully, they understood. And when I was in jail, watching all my buddies, that's where all my buddies were, was in jail.
Right. Just going to go visit your buddies. Then,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, here I am. I'm young still, and I have a chance to do something. But I'm saying, here's my buddies in jail. And they're all, fighting their cases. And here I am, I'm fighting my case and everything. But it was just strange to look at them, and I'm like, man, I can't do this no more. I tap out. Like,
Yeah.
I give up. I can't call you guys my buddies because you're sitting in the cell beside me, so you're not a good influence. And that's the thing is you adapt to your surroundings,
Yeah,
just like
absolutely.
anything, a bear in the woods, if you put them in West Virginia, they'll adapt to it.
Mhm.
Or you take that same bear and put him in Montana, he's still going to adapt.
Yeah.
And that's what it was. I was adapted to my environment. So, in my environment was drugs and partying and yahooing and things. So that's what I did. There was no structure or foundation built yet.
Gotcha.
And then I started slowing down a little bit on the drug use and things, and the drinking and partying and hanging out with the certain people. and it kind of just gravitated towards wanting to do something. I was like, there's got to be more in this town. There has to be more resources for people getting out of prison. There has to be resources for homeless people that's sleeping under the bridge, and there has to be things established for people to have that chance.
Yeah.
And in the end, it's up to you whether you take that step or not. There ain't no, the courts can't arrest to recovery. They've tried that, it failed. They can't do that stuff, and that's it's hard for people to get established when they're down and out. And I mean seriously hit rock bottom. They got to find a place to live. They have to get established. They have to get their mind in a set to where things ain't triggering them. So you got to get rid of all them triggers too as well. And your friends, I mean, my best friends are no longer my best friends anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, I went through that same change. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was a little different at first, but I was grateful enough to meet my wife, and I was still kind of struggling the fence a little bit of where my life was going to take me. And
yeah,
she kept telling me, you can do better than this. You can just keep going. I've heard your dreams. Keep going. And that push every day was the I think pushed me over the cliff. Was here's a solid woman that really wants to spend her rest of her life with you and do good, and wants to start that family life. And that's what I wanted. I was at that time I was getting a little older, and I want to settle down. And so back on the basketball, I was coaching the Harmer Hawks. Girls basketball team, 4th grade league. And I had met a gentleman, Jeff Schenkel, and I was coaching his daughter. And
I was wondering how you guys met.
Yeah,
Nice.
I was coaching his daughter, and I knew him as a councilman. So at first I was a little hesitant. Like, okay, here's a government official, he's probably going to lie to me. Or just not even give me the time of day and blow me off.
Yeah.
And what was funny, I mean, the first night of practice, parents were judging me on my tattoos and things like that, and was like, well, what, did you see his arms? Did you see his neck?
Yeah. Yeah.
And Jeff's like, well, how about we wait and I'll go to a practice and we'll go from there. So I told Jeff, I said, absolutely, come to a practice. You can watch. Actually, you can help.
Yeah, I know, right?
Like, you can definitely run some drills while I'm down here.
Yeah.
And then we just started chatting it up a little bit about some things. I'm born and raised right here on the West Side of Marietta. All my life, I've always lived here. And
nice.
I always, the neighborhood's got a good vision of what needs done. They just don't know the how.
Yeah. I've seen that. At the couple of meetings that I've gone of yours, I've noticed that. They don't. They need some guidance for sure. All of Marietta needs
absolutely.
a little more guidance.
And it's not a bad thing. I never knew how, know. We've got the what down. Now the how is the big part.
Yeah.
And Jeff, talking to him a while, and I was asking him, how can we fix sidewalks? First it was, how can we fix these parents not to judge me?
Yeah.
What does that take? And that was Jeff just kind of guiding me a little bit. He is definitely my guardian angel because he has shown me the real ways of how to do things and what to do and things like that. So when we was talking at basketball, it went from, how do I get these parents to trust me to how do we take care of a sidewalk? Who do I talk to fix a sidewalk? A broken sidewalk or a tree that's fallen in the road who do you talk to?
Right.
And we just started talking, and then we went from there to talking community engagement and how someone like myself, a convicted felon, can get involved, because I was thinking like, here
no
I
one's
am.
gonna want to hear me. Yeah.
They're not going to want to listen to me at all. That was so not true. Now today I'm like, that is so not true. Regardless if you're.
Yeah, I don't think that's true either. I think we're I've even said it, I think, a couple times on this podcast, is that I think we're in a place where, like your degree and your title and your background and all of that stuff doesn't really matter if you're really good at what you do. If you're really good at what you do and you're willing to, help and just keep helping, I don't know that all that matters anymore. I don't think that people even, when they look at it, is when you screw up. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I would just say, like, don't screw up. It's not that hard. And when I say don't screw up, I don't mean like don't say something to offend somebody, because that's going to happen. Mm-hmm. Guaranteed you're going to say something to offend somebody,
Right.
I just mean like, don't do the, the normal stuff that always gets, people that are in that, that spotlight, screwed over. It's, I don't know. They're caught cheating on their wives or what, just all the stuff that people are going to judge, and it's too easy to judge for.
Yeah, that's the problem. It's easy to judge people.
Yeah.
It's something that's free and easy.
Yep. But, I think that, like, everything I've seen you do, like, I would definitely back it up. You know what I mean? And I would cheer you on as well.
Well, I appreciate that. That's good to know. And I'm
gonna be real honest that, like, you really surprised me, to be honest. But like, when I put the word out for, like, I need some some parents to come and help and blah 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 blah. When you stepped up, I was just like, wow, that was quick for one. You know what I mean? And because no one else stepped up, even like it took another week before anyone even said they would help, and I had to like put another 2 or 3 emails out.
Yeah.
So on the first email, you were like, yeah, I'll help. What do you need? And I was just kind of like, okay, I've heard this before. You know what I mean? Like, everybody says I'll help, and then they don't really help.
Yeah, they're not there.
So we'll see what he's about. And then, like, man, you showed up like way above and beyond what I ever dreamed you would show up. And your wife, am I allowed to say her name?
Yeah.
Alicia. She showed up, and man, you guys helped me more than I could have ever dreamed. And I know I've told you, like, if you need any help, always ask me, and I mean that for sure. So keep asking if you need stuff.
Yeah, there's definitely now I'm committed to it, and I've just seen the change now, and now that's my drive.
That's rewarding. Yeah,
and
that's super rewarding.
That's that gas in me, and that's, once you start seeing positive change, the rest of your life kind of molds into that slowly but surely.
Well, I had a question about it, so let me ask it while we're kind of right on that. So could you tell us, like, some actual projects you guys have worked on? I know you and Jeff work together a lot.
Oh yeah, we've been ever since he's been elected. We've been.
And I'm only asking. I know a bunch of them, but even the ones I know, the public doesn't know. So let me know about some of them.
Yeah, we repainted Flanders Field and a couple of the equipment there. And
it looks beautiful.
It was just outdated, and weathered and things like that. I still can't fix that slide. It's a special material, and they said it was like a kayak material, so it takes a special kind of paint.
Oh, okay.
I went to Sherwin-Williams. I've got some red paint that they suggested, and it didn't work. Sun just took a toll on it.
Yeah.
So I actually was looking online for what type of paint we could use on that slide.
Is it a plastic?
Yeah.
Try dye.
The same plastic that they make slides with are the same material that they make kayaks with.
Okay.
So you literally got to scratch the surface for the paint to adhere to it.
I would almost try a dye.
So I've been pointed to a dye too.
Yeah, because like I've dyed plastic tons of times, and it actually I painted it too, and the paint always flakes off.
Yeah.
The sun will flake the paint off, guaranteed. So if you dye it, it's in there, and all it does is fade over time.
Yeah.
And then you can just re-dye it.
Yeah, and hopefully, now that we've been working on that Flanders Field, and
Yeah.
getting the basketball court redone and the backboards,
Yeah.
with some positive words on the back of them.
Yeah, I saw that
Marietta
too.
let
Yeah.
graffiti in. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
And that was all designed by a bunch of kids, neighborhood kids that actually seen a train going by.
Oh,
I
that's
will
neat.
not repeat the words that was wrote on the train.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the words they were seeing, they didn't really capture the word. They captured the art that made the word. So I was
Gotcha.
like, wow, like they really attached to that fast. So let's get them designing and put up some positive words,
Yeah.
because right down the road is a negative environment. So
Right.
if they're here thinking about, what does this word say in graffiti? That's the 5 minutes that they're taking reading that word is the 5 minute distraction that I like away from that environment,
Yeah.
looking down that road.
Yeah.
So, and I still have adults today, and they're like, Jackson, what does them say? You
Yeah.
know? And I'm like, that's great. That means it's working.
Yeah.
Because if you're asking,
You're checking it
me,
out. Yeah.
you're checking it out, and you're not focusing on what's actually going on down the road,
Yeah. Yeah.
And now, that Jeff and I have started, our no needles in the park no more. We went from tons of needles in the park to no
Well,
needles.
I will tell you that there's been, I don't even know, at least 10 lunches that I just wanted somewhere to go to eat.
Mhm.
That's where I go. And if I see anybody there doing stupid stuff, you believe I've ran people off.
Absolutely. Do that all the time.
Absolutely.
And I
you
encourage the
inspired me to
public.
do that. Absolutely. So,
That's a public place.
yeah, it's a kid's place to me.
Right.
You're not going to do drugs and sell drugs there.
Absolutely not.
And have dangerous activity going on while there's children trying to play there.
Yeah, and them kids,
Not my
they run
town.
around with their bare feet and everything,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
they.
Well, there's young enough kids that they would pick up a needle, wouldn't even know what it was.
Yeah. Yeah,
and
that's-
God knows what could happen.
Yeah.
What disease they could catch off of it. I mean, I think everyone's aware of how dangerous those are, and I definitely, like when you showed me what was going on there, which you definitely pointed out to me and inspired me to, actually care about that, side of town even. So, yeah, I definitely spend a number of, lunches over there, just hanging out in my car, seeing if anyone shows up.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
and that's that's a public park.
It
And
is.
everybody's welcome there, regardless of what walk of life you are. And we've got homeless that come there. We have that
Yeah.
drop box that's filled regularly
Yeah.
for the homeless, because I know sometimes our homeless they're a little bit sketchy about going to government buildings and asking for help or
Yes. Where is that exactly?
so that is connected to the pavilion.
Oh, okay.
It's actually a box on your.
It's like a red box.
No, it's a blue
Okay.
box, and it has
Blue,
a little roof.
okay.
And it's just the
Gotcha.
door opens, and there's canned good and non-perishable items in there.
Oh, nice.
And that's filled
Yeah.
regularly and things for them to come down and just get food out of there instead of going to, some of them are afraid to just, I call them nighttime walkers, because they come out of the woods and then they go back in.
Yeah.
So they'll come out and get their food and then go back in.
Yeah.
And you won't see them too often.
Right.
But that's a good starting foundation for getting that trust built, because if they'll go that mile, I wonder if I can put another box, 100 yards away
Yeah.
and
yeah.
spoon feed them to resources.
Yeah.
No,
I get that. Well, and maybe you can put some flyers in that box, and maybe they see a flyer that they're that might help them as well.
yeah, I mean
Yeah.
and we have that farmers market coming up. That's
Yeah.
a good thing with the Right Path program with Kathy Harper.
Yep. Love Kathy.
And that's we're getting ready to do right there at Flanders Field, where you literally just drive up. We give you, fruits
Awesome.
and vegetables and everything straight from the farmers market. They'll have their truck
Awesome.
parked right on the basketball court, and that's open to the public, the neighborhood,
Yeah.
anybody that would like to have fresh fruits and vegetables. It's
Well, I definitely
there.
hope the people that need it hear this, because that's huge.
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
know.
And
How do you volunteer for that?
I'm sorry.
How do you volunteer?
How do you volunteer for it?
you can just show up. That's the
Yeah.
thing is, if you
All
want to
right.
volunteer ever for Main Street West or any of that, just shoot me a message and say, hey, I want to volunteer. And you may not have a clue what you want to volunteer for, but I promise you that I have something that will grab your attention that you
Yeah.
can connect to.
I bet.
Whether that's food insecurity or homelessness or drug rehabilitation or something, there's always somebody willing to help that next person. And that's who I try and find, is who's going to bend over backwards for the next human. Because now my say is, I see all these humans, but I'm not seeing humanity.
Yeah. I get that. I get that a lot.
I see humans, you know what I mean? I see millions of humans, but where's the humanity? Where's the love, as the Black Eyed Peas say?
Yeah. Something was pointed out to me recently that, when people are face to face, then you see the humanity, because you have to have that, like, human connection. You see their emotion in their face and in their hand movements and all that. You see all of it, and you almost have to listen to that person. But the second they're not in your sight anymore, they almost don't matter anymore, because there's so much coming into your life. There's all the TV you could ever possibly watch. There's YouTube, there's, Facebook, all these different things that are just constantly bombarding, your attention. But anytime where you actually have to stop and look at someone and talk to them, I think those interactions they're dramatically better,
And human contact is the best medicine that another human can give another human. I mean, I know we're in COVID and everything, but I always make a joke that, that I've swam in the Ohio River so much, I am Teflon protected.
I bet.
So
literally,
thank you, DuPont.
I know. I love it.
So
that's hilarious.
The COVID, I mean, when I take a shower, the water just beads off me. Right. So.
Oh, that's hilarious. I love it.
So my immune system is really well because I've been drinking that my whole life. So at night I have yet to glow yet. So I guess
you're doing good.
Yeah, we're still healthy. When I start glowing, then I'll have some questions.
Right.
But no, you've got to, in the end, you got to have a heart for folks, and that's where I think the world right now is. I don't want to start preaching and sound like a pastor, but I think, that lack of companionship and that lack of human interaction, everybody wants to just stick their nose in their phones and everything during dinners or, meetings and things. I see folks in meetings looking at their phones, and it's like, excuse me, I'm talking. Like, I'm talking to you, not Facebook or YouTube.
Yeah.
You're not going to learn anything in there.
My niece says something funny. So if you're around her and she sees you break out your phone, she'll say, "Do I not amuse you?"
Yeah. Absolutely. And
I'm actually think I don't know if she really feels that way, but it makes you realize, like, God, she really could feel that way, and anyone could, and they probably do, It's like, I should focus.
And that, like we was talking about, that human compatibility back and forth like we're doing is very critical. Mentally, in your brain and everything, you need that human contact. And that's what, I understand COVID has broken that apart a little bit, but I think that's half the problem. Is people are disconnecting from people.
I know there was a study, and I'm only going to vaguely talk about it because I don't know that much about it. I'm going to look into it more, but I just heard about it yesterday. They took a bunch of babies, I believe it was in Germany, and I might be wrong, because I'm wrong all the time, but they did a study where they took a bunch of babies. They did not touch them at all. Like, the only interaction they had with them, human to human, was to feed them, but with, like, from a distance, no human contact whatsoever. A number of those babies died before they were like 2.
Oh, absolutely.
Because they need touch, and they were fed, everything they could have possibly needed, and they still died because they were never touched. And then they, tried to abandon the project, and then apparently a bunch of other babies died too. Like, it was too late. Like, they had gone too long without touch, and that's really strong. You
need that human interaction, regardless. Your mind will start to idle a little bit, and that's what you not want to happen. Is you don't want to confine your mind. as I say. You know.
Yeah, diversity is always going to help.
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely. And it doesn't matter what, I go to lectures sometimes and have no clue what they're talking about.
Me too.
And I'm looking at my buddy and I'm like, hey, what, am I missing something? What are they talking about?
Yeah.
Because it's not my cup of tea right then and there, but they may say something later on that sparks my interest. But I'll still listen because the human body fascinates me. Human minds and things fascinate me. They're curious little devils,
Oh, yeah.
And I will literally sit in the back of the room and just watch people because they're fascinating to me.
Oh, yeah. We're people watchers. We do a lot of that. We even travel to do that.
Yeah. But, yeah, I mean, overall, it isn't hard to be a human.
No.
And regardless if people, want to deny it or anything and I get rid of all the manly, tough guy role and everything is you need that comfort level. Because if you're not having that comfort level, your mind is in chaos. And that's what you was saying, things are crazy. And that's where I get to, talk about people they just watch but then they are offended or they want to comment like their opinion. And it's like, okay, your opinion's great, but where you are saying it is a little distasteful,
Yeah.
But I don't, I listen to a lot of people and their opinions and thoughts, and even though I may not like them, that's that person's right to share that with me, and I appreciate them sharing that with me, regardless if I like it or not. My own beliefs doesn't change the world, and their opinions doesn't change the world.
No, not even a little bit. No, I'd have to say that it's only going to be action that's going to change the world.
Right, right, and that's
so
absolutely.
I don't know that you can. You can run your mouth all you want. It's not going to change one thing much.
And that's, honestly, that's what...
Or it might change someone's opinion of you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean...
It's not the best you'll get out of that.
I'm not even going to lie. I mean, I'm sure Jeff's probably going to watch this. And, I tested him when I first met him. Like,
yeah.
Are you just another politician?
Yeah.
Are you just going to lie to me and tell me some hopeful dreams?
Yeah.
Right. That I have to be asleep to believe? And he was right out there. I said, okay, I'm going to take you with me. Show up. Don't bring a suit and tie.
Yeah.
Come as you are.
Yeah.
And he did. He had on pants with paint all over it. And I'm like, Jeff, I didn't say be homeless. I said dress and downsize a little bit. Like, I'm about to give you a sandwich. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, has your wife kicked you out?
Right.
Like, what is it? But he was very passionate, and he had a drive for it too. And I seen it when we was working in a homeless camp, and he was like, literally told a lady to scoot over a little bit, and he grabbed that shovel and started shoveling and picking up the trash, and that was really impressive to me. That he did that and grabbed that shovel like that and just started without any.
I've seen that a bunch of times. I know. And that impresses me about Jeff too.
Yeah, which I feel that it sets a bar of how a councilman should act.
I agree.
Within their neighborhoods and their wards is the only way you're going to make changes is if you're going to be involved.
Yeah.
Well,
the best leaders are the best servants.
Yeah.
You serve and that's how you lead. And when you do it that way, people are going to jump in and they're always going to try to do more than you. Like, they're like, oh, our leader is working too hard. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
And they're always going to jump in and do way more. So I've found that that's always the best way to lead.
Yeah, and it was just him.
He definitely does that.
Yeah.
And I can't honestly say personally that I've seen anyone else doing it like he does.
No.
I really don't. I mean, if he ran for mayor, I'm sorry, Josh. I'd vote for him in a second.
And there's been quite a few folks that even asked me, they're like, oh, talk to Jeff, get him to run for mayor.
Yeah.
Or things like that.
Oh, I've already tried. I don't know if he told you that. I definitely already tried. And he was just like, well, it's not quite that time yet.
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to keep talking you into it.
he wants to be connected to his ward
Yeah.
and the people that live there.
Yeah.
And he wants to fight for what's right. And I don't mean fist fight. I mean,
No, I know.
you know, he wants what's best for everybody, and he wants everybody to live comfortable and relaxed and not be scrutinized or, you know, dismantled because they live on the opposite side of the river or something.
Right.
You know, all them, that stigma.
That's awesome. Yeah.
And that's what he battles, is that stigma a lot of times. I mean, there's been folks that told him, like, you shouldn't hang out with Jackson. You know, stay
Yeah.
away from him.
Yeah.
And I think, honestly, that was fuel for his fire to just keep pushing me to push what I was doing.
Yeah.
And I was very impressed. I mean, he was so humble and kind, you know, and he just wanted what was best. And I seen that in him when we was sitting in the homeless camps or sitting in somebody's living room or somebody's back porch, we're talking. You know, he listened more than talked.
Right. Right.
And then he would take that home and evaluate it, and by the next day he's like, I'm going to call them.
Yeah.
I'm going to call them. You know, and it will literally eat his brain alive if somebody's not feeling comfortable or living as comfortable. And that's very impressive for a councilman, especially for in a city like this that...
I got to get him in here because now I'm curious about his past.
Yeah. I know a little bit, but I won't speak on it.
Yeah, I'll let him. Yeah.
He's an amazing mural artist, I'll just say
Oh
that.
man, he
hands
sure
down.
is. He's done a bunch around here, and I know recently did one right where I park, back there in the alley.
Yeah.
And it's gorgeous. I guess it's actually back this way in the alley.
Yeah,
gorgeous.
He's a talented person. I
Yeah.
mean, phenomenal.
Yeah.
And I wish he could be able to stretch his legs, if they would give him the ability to stretch his legs a little more
Yeah.
in this city, because I understand that some murals are meant to have a purpose, as, you know, to share the love of artists doing different styles of art. But, you know, but I also hear people talking about, well, we're a tourist city. And it's like, okay, well, why would you put that up? Why would you put something cheesy, cartoonish up?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Have a real artist put up lay some detailed paint
Yeah.
where these people are like, I need to find this artist.
Yeah.
Like, where's this artist at?
I get that. Right.
For our city.
Well, since we have those artists here, I mean, I've definitely seen it. Yeah.
I mean, and whether you want Bob Ross paintings to cartoonish
Right.
paintings, we have, this city is embedded with talent that's getting overlooked.
it is.
You know?
Yeah.
And it's like,
Hey, that's why we started this podcast.
yeah.
Yeah.
And that's, I am not going to jerk his chain no more, but he is, in my opinion, the best mural artist, hands down, in the
Nice.
county
Nice.
that I've ever
awesome.
seen.
Yeah, I, you know, Jeff, I couldn't even tell you how many times I've been volunteering and ran into Jeff,
Yeah.
and I'm just kind of like, wait a minute, you're a councilman, you know, like, what are you doing out here? Like, like, don't you have something better to do, you know? And but you know, I don't know. He amazes me. He has way more energy than I do.
Yeah.
And I thought I had energy, so
He's very
he's
passionate.
impressive. Extremely.
And
And,
you know, I've sat in his yard with his Star Wars pajamas on, drinking coffee with him,
yeah.
and we're sitting there talking.
Now
just-
everyone knows, Jeff, you wear Star Wars pajamas.
Yes, well, that's not a hidden thing, because if you drive by his garden, he's there.
Yeah.
And
That's hilarious.
his garden's phenomenal. He's got such a big pollinator habitat going on over there, butterflies and bees and things, and it's
Awesome.
really beautiful.
Yeah.
He's did a really fantastic job on that corner. But in his Star Wars pajamas at that, that's a very talented man.
That is too funny. Let's see where we're at here real quick. Let's take a little short break.
Okay,
Yep.
sounds good.
And we'll be right back. Maybe 10 minutes at the most, people. Don't stop watching. Welcome everybody. We're back. Sorry we took a little break. Hope we didn't bore you too much. We're gonna get right back into it though. So we were kind of talking about some of the projects and stuff that you guys have completed on the West Side. One of the things that I really appreciated you inviting me to, that I really want the community to know a little bit more about, especially on the West Side, is the youth program that you ran at and I'm gonna forget the park's name. Flanders Field. That's it.
Yeah.
Over on the West Side. And if anyone's not familiar with it, there's a park. I don't know what the names of the cross streets are. It's the only park over on the West Side. It has a baseball field in it, little playground. If you've seen a park on the West Side, it's that one.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it is the only park over there now that Harmer's school toys are gone now. So Flanders Field is the only public park that we have now. Which we can dive right into the fact of that's one of the reasons I want to get that up to date and looking a little better and get it ADA accessible and things like that, because we do have some wheelchair ladies and things that come in there and they do eat dinners and lunches there, but they struggle to get to a picnic table, and that's what I don't like to hear, because them are definitely women that I do care about, and it's neighbors that is just trying to utilize the park, and I want them to be able to utilize it in a safe manner.
I agree. I definitely think that's necessary.
So that, extending the picnic tables a little bit without the seats, just the top of it.
Right.
That way wheelchairs and things and scooters can get under it and still be part of the conversations at the table.
Right.
Little things like that. That park's been there, I think, probably since the 50s or 60s. I'm going to guess that, because I really don't know when it was actually established.
Yeah.
I've heard different dates, so multiple different dates. So I just say the 50s, 60s, 70s there. I hit it somewhere along the line.
Yeah.
But, with the rebound program, that was also, Jeff helping me out a little bit on.
Yeah. And let me clarify real quick, because some people really don't know the MOV Rebound for Kids program.
Yeah.
If you've heard of it, it's an amazing program that you run.
Yeah, and that's that's centered around a lot. When I was growing up on the West Side, I seen a lot of families, that had problems and situations, and the police were always involved. And growing up, I always heard like, "Oh, don't trust the police, don't talk to them, don't even acknowledge them."
Right, run.
Yeah, just get out of the way altogether. Don't be a part of that.
Right.
And it after a while, it became like, why is that? Why are they always taking, the police and everything and children's services? I seen all that taking, you know what I mean? But I never seen any giving back. I always seen the taking. And I'm like, well, that's going to create friction with that kid. That's going to create problems for life. You're scarring them literally for life.
Absolutely. And I've seen that too.
I'm like, man, how can we build a relationship back to put it back together and make it a strong friendship instead of a business? I understand the police department has a job to do. I get that.
Right.
But I think being a police officer is hard because, in my opinion, that they have to deal with all kinds of walks of life, and they have to be able to adapt to whatever circumstance they're in at that time or that call.
Yeah.
And, I was like, man, we need to just have a rebound program, where kids can rebound, the police can rebound for the kids and just shoot hoops, talk. And, what was funny was one day the sheriff's department showed up and they was wanting to play basketball with the kids, and this little girl said, "Oh no, you took my dad. I don't. I'm okay."
Yeah.
And she shied away from the game,
Yeah.
And I didn't like that. I was, that shouldn't be that way, because maybe 30 years down the road you're going to need that police officer.
Yeah. Never know. Yeah.
And I understand people want to say defund the police and everything, but it's with people that say defund the police, I'm like, well, if I was still a criminal and kicked in your door, who would you call?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, now you need them, right?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
so let's not defund them yet.
Yeah, probably a bad idea.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, I started that MOV Rebound for Kids program, and that was a place that they was on their turf. The kids were on their turf, comfortable in their setting, and the police just showing up with in their uniforms, and they're just shooting hoops with the kids. They're not asking questions about, like, do you know where the drugs are at, or any of that. You know, they're not there for that. They're there to build relationships. And I'll tell you, that same little girl throughout the end of the year, her and that sheriff was going to have lunch and hanging out and going swimming together. It was a great relationship that they had built, you know.
That's awesome.
And that's what that's for, is just to build them relationships. And having the ability to do it, you know, and the sheriff's department really took a hold of that and wanted to, you know, attend and be part of it and get back to the community, because they know the struggles just as well, you know. And that also creates a safe environment to say, you know, police officers are called to a situation, and that officer is already knowing that kid and have a relationship. They can extract that kid from the call, whether it's walk down the street because they're friends, they're comfortable, while that situation is being handled.
Absolutely.
You know, and you're extracting them.
Something else that kind of came to mind when you're saying that is that, you know, in a lot of cities now, social workers are being implemented in the place of police officers for certain calls. And they realize that because a social worker has more of a, you know, a psychology type of training. So, you know, the understanding of the, you know, the workings of the brain. And a police officer has almost none of that,
Right.
you know. But if there were more programs like you're talking about, the police officers would be more in contact with the public and kind of see on a friendlier, you know, setting, like, hey, you know, these are the people of my community, you know, poor, whatever.
Yeah.
And in this friendly, you know, setting, they're good people, which I think is important, you know, because the only time they ever get to see, honestly, the poor people is when they're in trouble.
Yeah.
And so then you start to, you know, you put them all on the same, you know, platform, and
Absolutely.
and they're all, you know, they're all trouble and they're all this and they're all that. But I mean, that's just not the case ever.
And it's easy to do that. That's the thing.
Oh, yeah,
It's easy
super
to
easy.
put them all in the same basket and
Yeah.
say this is the bad eggs.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, that makes, you know, I think that makes things super easy when you can just, you know, compartmentalize, and everyone is this way, you know.
it's easy.
But I've never met two people the same. So, and, you know, I've been around, well, the world, literally on a boat, you know, for the Navy, a ship.
Isn't that beautiful?
I know if I say a boat, I'll get yelled at by Navy guys. So it was a ship. But, yeah, you know, sailed around the world literally. And, yeah, I mean, people are all different, but I mean, we all want to be loved. You know what I mean? That's the number one thing that makes us all the same. You know?
Yeah, people are beautiful, and that's
Yeah.
you know, I say that a lot, is people are beautiful, because, you know, what other place can you find that's so creative, and is the brain. You know, the human mind is so creative and above and beyond the Call of Duty sometimes, that where people will literally stop what they're doing to lend that extra hand. And that's so powerful, because, and you'll find, I'll say this, I've had, and we'll touch back on them degrees and titles.
Yeah.
I've had better, more intellectual conversations with homeless people in tents than I did politicians.
I believe that. That would probably be pretty easy.
And I still go to these homeless camps because I take them food every week and things like that. And
Yeah.
some of their problems could be addressed easily.
Yeah.
And then I meet people that don't want the help. They're like, oh, no, I'm good. I don't want the help.
Yeah.
And I respect that too, though. You know what I mean? Because then
Yeah.
you're not wasting your time nor my time to help another.
I get
You know,
that. Yep.
I meet people from all walks of life. Some are staying here. Some are going out west or up north. I just like meeting new people all the time, and that's the drive in me that wants to just continue to meet more and more people, because what they're saying isn't wrong, and they're
Right.
just because that's their opinion doesn't make them a bad person.
Yeah, for sure.
And you can't just judge them off their opinions alone. You've got to be sitting down and meeting one another and things like that. And that's even like you was saying, like, you showed up, and that's,
Yeah.
well, you asked me to show up, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And when you meet new people, first impressions sometimes go the deepest.
Absolutely.
So
Often. Yeah.
when I meet new folks and things like that, I always want to listen to them more than me tell them about me.
Yeah.
Because mine
I'm
is
kind
a
of like
long,
that too. Yeah.
long drawn out journey. So
Yeah.
I'm interested in you.
Yeah.
So, and some people's like, wow, they'll just talk and talk and talk and talk and not shut up.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm like, can I speak a little bit here?
Yeah.
But people are fascinating and people are beautiful. And when you was around the world, I'm sure you met good and bad on the other side of the map compared
Everywhere.
to over here.
There's
So
good
I mean,
good and bad everywhere you go. But the biggest thing I would say is that I see way more good than bad.
yeah, and that's
way more good. I think if we all look around us, way more good people than bad. The bad are easy to spot, and all the news is about them, so it makes it seem like everyone's bad. And I got kind of tricked into that, thinking that, people are all bad, they all lie, they all this,
and that's the
and that's what
news.
people say, everyone's a liar. I couldn't tell you how many times I've heard that, and then actually heard everyone in the room agree with that statement, and I'm like, no, that's not true. That's not even close to true. There might be people that don't like to hurt other people's feelings, and so they might, alter the perfect truth, you know what I mean? But that doesn't make them a liar,
Right.
And nothing's black and white. I've not found one, single thing in my life anyway to be just, this is how it is, and that's not how it is not, It's never been black and white for me, so maybe it is for someone else. I don't really believe that, but I just... Everyone's different, but everybody wants to be loved.
That's what makes
know?
it beautiful, that everybody's different. If
That's
we was
what I
all the
love.
same, life would suck.
Boring. Oh, boring. Let me never meet another person if that was the case.
And I've met
Yeah.
people with them high titles and everything, and,
Yeah.
in Columbus and such, and they're like, well, I'm such and such, and I have a degree in blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm not impressed.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm not, because here I am with, I'm a high school dropout, no degrees,
Yeah.
and,
Well, I'll tell you, life experience is worth more than most degrees, honestly.
yeah, and I still get on to my wife sometimes, because she'll be like, well, how do you spell this? And I'm like, that's coming from that Marietta graduation. That's you graduated, and you're
Yeah.
asking me how to spell. It's always funny,
Yeah.
And I always tease her about that. But like I said, is people with titles, man, it's like they hit a certain point and they're just towering over people now. Like that title put them up in the tower to look over folks.
Yeah.
And
I call that forgetting where you came from.
yeah, there's a
Yeah.
lot of people that did that. And
Yeah.
I think you have to make the life the best you know how, and
I agree.
with the tools you have. And I've met other people that work in the community, but they have a hidden motive, like
Yeah.
they want to cut a ribbon or get their name in the paper or be on WTAP, and it's
Yeah.
like, if that's what impresses you, I'm not talking to you.
Yeah, I'm the same, I think. I don't know. I don't really care about titles, or prestige, or how much money you made last year or in your whole life, or any of that. For me, it's like, what is your character doing? Like, what in your life are you doing to help other people?
Yeah, and people.
I can't help but other people. So, if you're helping other people, then I'm definitely going to draw you into my life,
Yeah.
If you're doing good things for the community, I'm going to draw you into my life. I'm going to try to have you on my podcast probably. And if you're not, then I'm really, if you're a public figure and you're not doing good for the community, I'm probably going to point some fingers at you.
It's embarrassing that you're not using the platform that you have.
I agree.
There's folks in this city that have platforms and they refuse to
make it
use them.
super easy.
And it can make real big changes real fast.
Yeah.
But I ain't afraid to say this. They're scared.
Yeah.
And that's okay because we have our puppet masters.
Yeah.
And that's who they're afraid of.
Right.
And I've seen people bloom a little bit, and I'm like, I see it. There it is.
Yeah.
And then I question, like, why did you go back in your shell?
Right.
Like, who is making you go back in your shell?
I'm going to tell you something about me, Jackson, is that I'm already ready for that. I already know I'm going to get all kinds of flack, depending on who I choose to have on here and what they say and all that. I already know I'm going to hear it from every angle, but I'm already prepared for it, whether it be I have to, move to another venue or whatever has to happen to make this continue to happen. It's going to keep happening. So if they come at me, then they're really going to get it.
Well,
you know what I mean? Because if they come at me, I'm going to get even louder.
It's kind of hard to argue the truth.
It really is.
And
that's what I want to bring to this town is, some truth.
Yeah.
Some better politics. There's some good people in politics doing some good things. I like our new mayor. I think Josh is doing some things. Unfortunately, I kind of have Jeff as my standard. You know what I mean? And until Josh does what Jeff's doing, you know what I mean?
He set that bar pretty high.
He did. In my mind, he sure did. And so, like, Josh, if you're hearing us, you know what I mean? Like check out what Jeff's doing. And Josh, if I see you, like, patching a hole in the street, fixing a sidewalk, tearing up some bricks, putting a fire pole in, because these are all things I saw Jeff doing with his bare hands, and one other person helping usually. So, I see that, and then I'll be impressed. I'm impressed with action.
And I've had folks in this city tell me, they're like, "Oh, Jackson, we're just so impressed with what you do." And I'm like, "Don't be impressed, be involved.
Yeah, just come help. That's what I always tell people.
Shut up and grab a shovel."
Yes,
you know what I mean.
Don't pat me on the back. You know what I mean? Like, stand beside me. You know?
Don't call me on my phone and say there is too much goose poop on the bike path.
Oh God.
Well, get a shovel and do it yourself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Don't call me or tell me that Mrs. Such and Such grass is 3 foot high. Okay, well, did you offer to cut her grass?
Right.
No, you didn't. So
yeah.
I hope it grows 6 feet.
I know. Yeah, me too.
And then when you get tired of it, maybe you'll cut it for her because she's elderly or she just can't manage to do it or don't have a weed eater. You know what I mean? Like, if instead of
maybe she's going through a depressed time in her life and she actually can't even get out of bed.
Absolutely. Whatever
who knows?
Whatever it is, you need to first evaluate what person you're dealing with. You know what I mean? If I have a neighbor that's their grass is 6 foot high, I'm worried for my neighbor now.
Yeah, I would be
wrong?
too. Absolutely. Yeah.
And then I'm going to say, okay, check and see if there's anything wrong. But then my next question is, can I cut your grass?
I know, right? I mean, I'm gonna mow my yard anyway.
Your grass is annoying.
I don't like what your yard.
Out of me.
You obviously don't care what your yard looks like.
Right.
I do. It's on me. You know, I'm the same way. I'm like, man, if I have a problem with your yard, then I should be mowing it.
Yeah,
I'm the same way. I'm the exact same way.
And
I've mowed a bunch of yards, by the way.
And that's the thing. Like, take the initiative.
Yeah.
Like, don't be embarrassed to ask if maybe that person isn't physically capable to maintain their yard or something of that nature. And I'm just saying yard as an example. Just don't give them your opinion.
Yeah.
Offer a solution. I hate when people just tell me no without a solution.
Yeah.
Just don't tell me no.
Yeah.
I had here recently, I had a person call me up and they said, well, this other person said, no, you can't do that. And it's like, well, what can we do? Okay, it's a no, so you must have a reason. I've not yet heard that reason. I'm kind of curious to know that reason, but and then when I've asked other figures around him, it's always, I'm guessing this or I'm guessing that. So I'm like, whatever. You know what I mean? You're just saying no because you're a punk and you want to be a punk.
Right.
But, just because you tell somebody no, don't mean you can't give them solutions or reasons of another avenue. There's, that old phrase of there's more than one way to skin a cat.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Whether you're mowing grass or sweeping porches or something, if somebody tells you no, at least have the audacity to ask, can I help? Because that neighbor, and that's, jumping right into it of, I am all about longer tables, not taller fences.
Yeah. I like that. That's a good saying.
Is Jeff nor myself nor a mayor nor we can't stand alone and do it all. You know what I mean? There has to be that neighborhood engagement for a neighborhood to revitalize itself. And everybody is equal at the table. Nobody, when Jeff is sitting with me at Main Street West or something, his opinion matters, his thoughts matter.
Yeah.
But what's real critical is the neighbors, the neighborhood that's giving the opinions and the thoughts, and then combining them. It's like if we've dumped a puzzle out on this table, we would start together putting it together if it's a big puzzle. And that's what a neighborhood should be doing, is they take issues, dump them on the table, and prioritize and sort them out and find out, how do we do this and when can we do this, or who do we talk to do this, what department do we go to, and that's how Main Street West started kicking off. Was part of the reason it started kicking off was we was bringing city officials over to a Main Street West meetings, and whether it was the safety service director or mayor or someone of that nature, just telling the neighborhood what their job and their can and can't do's.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? What their abilities are. And that really helped, because people was like, well, what can my mayor do? Or what does code enforcement do? Or if I file a nuisance complaint, do I give that to the courts or do I give that to the mayor? Things like that. People didn't know how local government functioned, and that was alarming. And
which is kind of confusing around here.
Yeah,
for sure.
It's two different atmospheres. You know what I mean? And it shouldn't be that way. That should be a melting pot.
Well, being that your government is supposed to be doing what the city, is supposed to be kind of hearing the voice of the city and implementing it.
Right.
That's basically their job. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's, what does one of these rapper guys that just come out, he was Tom McDonald, just come out with a song named Snowflake. And he said, have you ever heard that?
No, I haven't.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And he says that when you lie to the government, they'll put you in prison. But if they lie to you, they're called politicians.
Yeah.
And
that's
that,
funny.
the first 14 seconds out the gate, he is annihilating it. You know what I mean? And we'll listen to it eventually. But, I find it fascinating when our local government and people can come together in unity, because what they're building is so phenomenal. Like, I've seen projects come together where it's community organized and locally supported, and it's phenomenal. Like, the beauty of it comes out, and it's there permanently. And I'm not saying our local government is bad. I am saying that it could use some help.
I'm not saying they're bad either. Just maybe a little motivation is what they need.
Well, this city's we're not New York or Chicago or Seattle, Washington or anything. Nothing has just come across the mayor's desk and has to be done that day. And it's, stamp of approval when it's done.
Right.
Here, I say we're an old steam train. We got to take a few seconds before the wheels grab traction.
Yeah.
But as that wheel is turning and grabbing traction is the time to watch the process and the growth. And
Yeah.
I know some people just want to see the rose for the rose, but it's on top of the plant.
Right.
But I find it fascinating is that growth and process.
Yeah.
What does it take to feed that plant? What goes into that rose growing to make it a rose? The rose
Yeah.
is fascinating, but it dies out, but the root always stays. So why do we concentrate on the root and not the rose and not the root?
Gotcha.
So in local government, I wish they would focus a lot more on the roots
Right.
than the flower.
Yeah.
And that's one way of putting it. The growth is where you find the fuel to make the
Yeah.
project or the plants grow.
Yeah.
And that's where I think we miss our mark.
Agree. Yeah, I feel you on that. I feel like there was like a gap in the roots. You know what I mean? Like, I look back 20, 30 years ago in this town, and there were some good roots going on.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was a gap. And then the roots died or something. And we got to rebuild some roots. I don't know that I see a lot of real good roots going on right now. I see some new roots growing, absolutely. But yeah, I'd like to definitely see some, a little more thought on that foundation like you're talking about. One of the big things that I see going on in this town, due to the lack of codes in the past, and I don't really know what the codes are, to this day. So, again, I'm wrong all the time. But, I've worked in the construction field in this town. I see what's being built. I see what you're allowed to do and not allowed to do. I see what my, the person I'm building for, what code they were, required to follow, and I'm not impressed. I'm like, well, there was no thought of like water coming off of this hill or onto this street or into this, gutter or any of that, but it rains all the time here. And it's a city that floods, you know what I mean? And I'm
Right.
like, well, you've just not thought at all about watershed, and it's like in a city that floods constantly.
Yeah.
I mean, one year it flooded 6 times.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, but that frustrates the living shit out of me, and I'm going to cuss for the first time on my podcast because that is so disturbing to me that it's just ignored. There's no concern for, and I've lived in towns where, in Seattle, where it rains all the time, but they know it rains all the time, which means there's going to be water on the ground all the time. You need to deal with that water. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
the code is where you get the dealing with that water,
Yeah.
When someone builds something new, you require them to deal with that water. The next person builds something new, they have to deal with the water. And then down the road, you know what I mean, the water's actually dealt with. But I don't see any, like, in the code that I've read and had to follow,
Well, what's crazy?
I don't see anything in that.
Yeah. I mean, to speak on that, I know that we are Tree City, USA. Have you
Yeah.
ever heard that?
Yeah. I've heard Tree City, and then the fact that we have like 4 water sources coming into the same blah, 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 blah.
Well,
I'm about sick of hearing that too.
regardless, I am not a tree fan. I think trees suck. We have too many, and it's
Yeah.
annihilating people's foundations. And
Yeah.
okay, we're Tree City, USA, but we are surrounded by water.
Yeah.
So why aren't we a river city? You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
Our boats and our stern wheeler and thing, that's our main attraction. These trees bring no money to this city.
No.
And I know people are going to criticize me for this, but I am not a tree person. We need them. We do.
I'm a tree guy, but this is, and I believe what my buddy told me. He was a tree cutter. He was a logger. He told me, James, trees do 2 things: they grow, they die, and they fall.
Yeah.
That's it. So they grow and they fall.
Yeah. And
That's it.
And
I
I'm
was
not
like,
saying
oh,
that the
that.
trees don't look pretty.
For
I'm
a
just
while.
saying, like,
until they crush
after
your house.
a while, it's starting to cost money to tear them, get them
Yeah.
cut down and things.
Yeah.
And we are a river city. We have boats here. We have sternwheelers, and coming up next weekend, one of our biggest festivals of the city.
That's right.
Is the sternwheeler. It is not a tree wheeler. It's a sternwheeler. And
hey, you might make them change the name now.
Oh my gosh, I shouldn't have said that, should I? I just started.
You came up with the name.
My gosh, I shouldn't have did that.
That's gonna be the next festival, the Tree Wheeler.
Yeah, but I'm not impressed. Like I see these trees damaging people's properties that doesn't have the financial capability to do something about it. Yeah. When that tree could have just got knocked down 10 years ago, and we ain't at that point now where we're charging poor people to take care of city property and things.
I get that.
And that's we could have solved this issue 10 years ago when it was leaning over the road over a power line, and we're like, we'll get it someday.
Mm-hmm.
And then the someday comes, and then you're like, oh, well, it's not us. They've got to pay for it.
You're right.
And that's
I see that happening a lot in this town.
And
absolutely.
And I understand we need trees. That's our oxygen. Great.
Well, I'll tell you that
it's not bringing money.
Trees are actually not the biggest supply of oxygen. It's actually the ocean, the stuff growing in the ocean. Yeah. It's over 60%. The trees ain't making no money while they're sitting here. No, they're not, and they can fall and kill people.
They're costing money.
Absolutely.
And I don't have a personal vendetta against trees or anything.
I'm a tree lover. I love tree. I'm a disc golfer. I mean, I love tree. They create the fairway for me. You know what I mean? But I don't like seeing them falling and killing stuff. I don't like them seeing falling on people's houses. I don't like them damaging property. And that's never a good thing.
Which brings me to Main Street West, and myself and Jeff and us as a Main Street West group, we attacked the Franklin Street corridor, which is coming, and there's going to be some. We're working with Sherry Ellum at the Washington.
Sherry.
She is an amazing person. We're working with her, and she's helping us work with an organization called Tool, which does like complete streets and things like that. So I study a lot on complete streets and capacity of streets and street loads and things. That's what I've been studying on here for a good year now.
So like weight loads and stuff?
Yeah, that and like so good example of a complete street is when you're heading into Vienna from Boaz, and you have that center line of trees and that welcome sign, welcome to Vienna.
Right.
That looks pretty, but that is actually a measure taken to slow. It's a traffic measure. It's supposed to slow traffic down, squeezing the street.
Right.
So that is, yes, it looks pretty, but it's actually serving a purpose. It's a traffic calming measure is what they call it.
Right. That's something I'll bring up on this podcast real quick. Like on Front Street downtown here, we have 4 lanes and then, 2 parking lanes, 4 driving lanes on the, most shopped and most pedestrian, high traffic in the whole town, and we have 4 lanes of traffic that are supposed to be doing 25. I've never seen anyone doing 25, which is why people have died on the street. And I'm like, why don't we have more parking on Front Street where you have all this shopping? There should be more parking because that's what everyone complains about. But then someone explained to me that, oh, wait, there used to be. They actually used to have diagonal parking, and there was only 2 lanes of traffic.
Right.
Well, let me fire whoever made the decision to change that, because that was the dumbest decision. And I'll be the first to say that. You can't have all this. You don't want all your traffic on your biggest shopping street.
Right.
It's hurting us. You know what I mean? I don't even have shopping in my business here on Front Street, but the noise from the traffic, everything, interrupts my business. You know what I mean? Interrupts every business down here. But, because it's the easiest street to travel to Putnam Bridge, everyone comes down to Front Street. The way traffic is routed in this town doesn't even make sense. And that again is, kind of goes along with the code that I was saying that doesn't make sense.
And to speak to that a little bit is I tell folks because I've heard that same message being said, is along with the Franklin Street corridor, when the Franklin Street corridor was made, it was made to fit that era.
Yeah.
And
Now, where's Franklin Street?
Franklin Street, as it connects to Putnam, so you go across the Putnam Street Bridge.
It's that second left.
It's the second left.
Yeah.
Right
Yeah, I
there,
know what
actually,
you're
by
talking about.
Jeff's house.
Yeah.
So right around his,
Okay.
and that is, that's Franklin Street. And most of these streets were designed for their era,
Yeah.
that to hold that traffic load. Now
Right.
here we are in 2021, I want to say that I think my father mentioned that he remembers that street being done in the 70s, redone. And here we are in 2021, and now we have higher traffic volumes,
Way more. Yeah.
pedestrians, bicyclists, things like that, and it's not compatible no more to the era now,
Right.
and it's not able to safely travel through Franklin Street because it's not fit for today's time.
Yeah.
And I think that's what happened to Marietta, is it fell back a little bit. And I do believe that our local government and others are looking at, how to make it more safe for everybody, whether you're a bicyclist, pedestrian, or traffic,
Mhm.
any of them three measures. How do we make it compatible for everybody? And that's where complete street design comes in. Whenever you're bored some night, look up Complete Street 101. It's
Yeah.
on YouTube. And
Well, the funny thing is, I think I've lived in enough towns and seen enough complete streets that
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I could figure it out real quick.
Yeah.
Maybe I should run for one of these offices.
absolutely do it, man.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is we have folks that are set in their ways. They've been in these
Yeah.
positions for 4, 5, 6, 7, up to 10 years in the same position.
Yeah.
And when people get stagnant, projects get stagnant.
Yeah. Well, and I
And
think that
that's-
when people get stagnant too, they often tend to try to figure out how to, find more money in their pockets. That seems to be what I see in politics.
It's sad, but it's true. And I know this
Yeah.
is your podcast, so I
Yeah.
I have my personal opinions about things of, this town. Okay, well, I'll just say it.
Yeah,
This
please
town
do.
still survives somewhat off the Good Old Boy Network.
Yeah. I believe
So,
that. I've seen it from an outsider's point of view.
It's disgusting and distasteful because this is 2021.
Yeah.
We need to catch up with the program a little bit, because when you start falling so far behind, the people
Yeah.
that are trying to compete don't want to compete no more because it's a losing battle.
Absolutely.
And that's where I'm saying, like, we need to wake up a little bit, smell the roses, get moving, get functioning, because yes, the city of Marietta brings in tourists, and this is a tourist hotspot, but you also got to
Not
think
for long.
them tourists
Yeah.
doesn't take care of the city.
No. And they bring money to it, but
They
how
bring money
much?
to it.
How much? Really?
You gotta, we have to understand locals, and things like that. Is when I say eat local or shop local, I'm not saying that just because the guy that I'm saying shop local for is my buddy.
Yeah.
I'm saying that because he's got a kid that he's got to put a jersey on his back,
Right.
or he's got cleats he's got to take care of. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
And there's a reason behind the madness, and this city is good about sweeping things under a rug
Yeah.
and maneuvering obstacles.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. If it's not on the forefront, it definitely is getting shoved under the rug.
what's
Yeah.
funny is people have actually tried to talk bad about me, and I'm like, okay, well, tell the public something they don't know about me. Because I've been on podcasts, I've been on TV and in the newspaper, and I've shared every dark secret of mine. So please go ahead and inform someone that don't already know something about me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Say, when I first met you, you didn't hide anything.
No.
You were completely open about all of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I never felt nervous about letting you help the program. I had a bunch of kids. I knew that. I never felt uncomfortable about that.
Yeah, and that's that's, you wasn't judgmental. You just gave it that shot like Jeff did.
Yeah,
Just kind of
I'll
like,
give anybody a chance.
yeah, absolutely. And
Yeah.
and I understand that I don't get 3 chances. I get 1 chance. So
Yeah.
I try and crank that home run
I
out
like
that
that.
1 chance.
Well, that's important. I hope people just heard what he just said.
Yeah.
Like, you got to look at, like, when you're making that first impression, it's your only chance.
Yeah.
And if you look at it like that, you'll probably do a better job at giving a first impression. You know?
Right. And I don't mean
That's a good way to look at it.
And I don't mean to be fake about it.
Yeah.
I mean, actually be honest and open about stuff.
Yeah, be the most real you can be.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
and don't hesitate to be real.
Yeah.
And that's funny because Jeff likes to saying that I say it's real is REAL.
Yeah.
Do you know what that stands for, actually? Realizing everyone ain't loyal.
Oh, that's so true.
So,
yeah.
I listen to people, like I said earlier in the podcast, I listen to folks regardless if I like them or not, because in the end, they may say something that is real.
Yeah.
And that may be the only one thing I get to take away from that conversation, but I still, build a relationship. Second, I can talk to them openly.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because who wants to hang out with someone that always agrees with you? You know what I mean? That just sucks.
I never want that.
I would rather have someone debate something with me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Way more fun. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If we both like basketball and we both like football and we both like, there has to be a little bit of breaking up the monotony. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm not a disc golf guy. I suck at it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I will throw it in the river.
You went with me one time. I thought you did pretty good.
Yeah, I mean that's the best I could do. But it was fun.
Yeah,
it definitely was fun, and in the woods up there and everything, walking them holes.
Oh yeah.
Just the enjoyment of being outside in the woods and the wilderness and everything, and not caring too much about the game because I'm not a disc golfer at all. I was really worried about throwing one of your disc golfs clear over the hillside out on the Route 7 or something.
That would be me.
Oh, and me, because I've done that myself. Man, I've lost hundreds. So,
but
yeah.
I really appreciated that, and that was really a fun time and just a journey and just to get out. And, we
Something
socialized
new.
the whole time and enjoying something together new, and that was really impressive. And that's what it's all about, how you start building them friendships, whether you like it or not. Just go,
Yeah.
I don't like going to lectures, when I started first going to Marietta College and stuff. And it was, not that I'm a student there. I was going there for other students and things, and they would bring me in there. And, Jeff was like, hey, just go in there. And I'm like, I don't know about all this, dude. It's like, they've got gold trim around and everything. And I'm like, I feel a little bit out of place. I felt like I was addressing the president or something in there. But, once I got in there and realized, like, man, this is a cakewalk. Like, I started walking in there with a little bit of chip on my shoulder, you know what I mean? Like, you guys need to listen to this.
Right.
And just on and on with that. And it became, now I go up there and I'm welcome with open arms and things. And, they still to this day let me come talk to their kids. And here this year, they're going to be sending me some more McDonough students to take care of the neighborhood and want to do some service projects and things. So it's a really fun time working with them. And just walking them kids around the neighborhood, because, most of them kids, I would say 50-50. Some are privileged and some isn't.
Yeah.
But the kids that isn't privileged, or you don't see that as much privilege in them, they seem more compassionate to want to make the change.
I bet.
So they wanna be like, oh, she can't go in her garden, can we? And they say, can we? And I'm like, that's the question you need to ask right there.
Yeah.
Keep asking them questions. Well, if we can't go in her garden, what else does she need done? That's that human coming out of them.
Yeah.
And sometimes I know it's hard going to a super college or, a powerhouse college like Ohio State.
And you don't need all that. And
getting a degree and everything.
Yeah.
And that's impressive, awesome, great, and you're on your way. But don't become like an action figure where they're printing multiples of you out.
Yeah.
Sometimes I find people that's running for certain positions in the state or the county or the local, I feel they've been busted out of a package. Like there's
Yeah,
there's
I get
multiple
that.
ones.
Yeah, like will they fall into that, like, politician role?
Yeah,
where you
and
just
it's
have to
like,
say the right thing,
do
everything
you
you
all
say.
have to be
Yeah.
like? Do you all have to be the same?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things I look for in a politician is that you say something I didn't like to hear.
Yeah,
Because if you just say, if everything you say I like to hear, then you're lying.
absolutely.
Like, you couldn't
Absolutely.
possibly say everything I like to hear. So I want to hear something that, like, maybe, strikes that, like, oh, I'm offended chord, which I hardly ever get offended, but at least I might get that chord, stricken every once in a while. But, like, you gotta, like, make me think harder, something. You know what I mean? But yeah, if you're saying exactly how I think life should be, I'm not a politician. I know I don't know how to run this world. So if you're saying everything I'm thinking, then I'm afraid. You know what I mean? That's kind of like a horse. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
you're on a horse
yeah.
and you're afraid. Like,
There's
that's kind of how I am with politicians.
them two words are like run up my spine as when people say I'm offended.
Yeah, that
I'm
one
like,
cracks me up. Yeah,
if
I don't
you're-
even really know what that is.
You're
in my head.
offended, but you
Yeah.
grew up in the '90s with South Park. Are you serious right now? Are you
know,
offended?
right?
Tom
Yeah.
Green show,
Uh-huh.
the Howard Stern show. Like, how are you offended in any way because a
Yeah.
naked grandma ran down the street and you're like, oh, I'm so offended? No, you're just perverted and watching just like I am
I know,
and
right?
laughing at the same
Yeah.
time. Like, come
Yeah.
on now.
That's
Like
hilarious.
that being offended is just, we're in a freaking soft generation.
We are.
Just
yeah, I agree.
soft.
Yeah. Well, I think the one thing I keep feeling like I see is that, like, there's so much change happening so fast.
Well, opinions
Mostly-
matter.
Yeah, it's you have a freedom of speech, your opinion matters, you have all these rights, you this and that, and then you have the internet, pointing fingers at any
Oh my gosh.
possible bad thing or word or unpolitical thing you say. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And so it, like, magnifies it very quickly.
And then
today,
you have them media
know?
sources coming out and pushing the negative energy out onto
Absolutely.
everybody. I mean,
Yeah.
wake up in the morning and turn on the news.
Yeah.
You're going to hear chaos, disaster, or destruction.
Well, and the problem with that is that, like, if it's bad enough, it's going to get clicks.
Yeah.
And then if it
Yeah.
gets clicks, then everyone jumps on it.
Yeah.
And so I tend to kind of stay away from that kind of media anyway.
Yeah, I
you
don't.
know?
I mean, I say this proudly: is I don't watch Fox News and CNN for the same reason I don't eat out of my toilet.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I like it.
Like,
Yeah.
that's the same reason because it's
Yeah.
crap to me.
Well, I tell people this: I don't watch the news at all.
Yeah.
I just kind of like, it. If I wanted to be depressed every morning, I
Oh
would
my
wake up
gosh.
and watch the news.
Yeah.
But I don't want to be depressed every morning, so I don't watch the news. Period. I just avoid it at all costs. And if someone tells me a story that I think I need to hear, then I can read about it. But I'm
Yeah.
not watching the news. Like,
Yeah.
I think every news I see on TV, like, I wasn't really raised with TV, so I don't really understand commercials very well.
Mm-hmm.
Like, when I watch commercials, I'm kind of like, brainwashing,
Yeah.
brainwashing, and more brainwashing. You know what I mean?
Call 1-800-BRAINWASH.
Yes, and I'm just kind of like,
Yeah.
oh my god, like, people actually watch these things. And then when, like, like the Super Bowl comes around and people are like, oh, did you see that one commercial? No, I actually walked away from the TV for that.
Yeah.
Which you should do too.
The game isn't on. So.
No, the game. I thought you were watching the game. I
Yeah.
don't care about those commercials. Like, that's garbage.
Yeah, and
all
that's-
of it, even when they're funny, it's still garbage.
Right. And that's.
yeah.
I understand that it makes that money. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Destruction, chaos,
Yep.
and things makes the money, and
Yeah.
and people love to hear about that. I mean, shoot, when I talk about homelessness, people are fascinated, rich and poor.
Yeah.
They get so fascinated, and they're like, "I'm just so fascinated in the way you talk," and I'm like, "How about you help out instead of just being fascinated?" It's easy to be fascinated.
Like,
It's a whole
hang out
nother-
with me for a
Right.
while.
I'll take you to them homeless camps
Absolutely.
with me,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. I feel that
it
for
will
sure.
make you human again. Because still to this day, I sit in them homeless camps, and it helps me still think back like, wow, this is what it could have been. This is where I still could be. So it's kind of like a recovery for me,
Yeah, I get that.
And that's where I sit there and I talk to them folks and I have genuine conversations. Some of them are good, some of them are bad. Sometimes they're crying or something.
Right.
But in the end, when we leave and part our ways, we are both on smiling terms. So that's one thing that I always make sure that I'm leaving on a smiling note. Because frankly, I like to leave people with smiles because, that tomorrow ain't promised. So when you're working with folks in a tent, whether they're rich or poor, I always try and leave that smile because you're not guaranteed that. So that's something that I'm always passionate about is think about the person and not yourself.
Yeah.
If we start thinking about others and a lot of others, we don't have time to think for ourselves. And it's good to like do things for yourself, but it's better to, you can make recovery in yourself by helping another.
Yeah.
And that experience of seeing the smiles happen and things like that is where it's at. Like that's the reward. And I've had people want to like slip checks in my pocket and money in my pocket.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no.
Yeah.
That isn't why I'm here. You've got me. The good old boy network's over town.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It ain't over here.
Yeah.
And
well, something that has definitely I've noticed over a lifetime is that, especially with myself, if I'm being a jerk, I've been having a bad, like, it's not just a bad day. It's been a bad week. It's probably been a bad month, So probably most people, if they're being a jerk, most people, not all, they've probably been having a bad time for a while, Maybe ask them why. Why are you being a jerk?
Yeah.
Like, I didn't ask for that, and don't be a jerk about it. Just say, like, hey, man, like, what's going on with you? And you'd be amazed at some of the answers you get when you do that with people.
Yeah.
I mean, that's definitely something that I've noticed is like the only time I'm usually a jerk is if like nothing's been going right for a while, So yeah, I that, but then like, on the community level, I think it's the same thing, like you can look at like, okay, well, I'm just one person in my community. What could I possibly change? Well, you'd be amazed. You know what I mean?
Oh, my God.
I'm going to say, like, all you got to do is follow Jeff around for a while. You know what I mean? Follow you around for a while. You could probably follow me around and at least see a little bit. But,
yeah, I mean,
it's
believe it or not, I can't find people
amazing.
with titles to pick up needles out of the park. My homeless people do it.
Yeah. I believe that.
And that's... Here they are coming through the West Side in their Mercedes-Benz or BMWs, and they'll be like, "Oh, we don't want to stop there.
Yeah.
Look at them. Look at that park." And it's like,
I can't imagine living on, what is that street named again?
That's the Flanders Field.
No, the one that you were talking about where you take that second left.
Oh, that's
over
the Franklin Street.
Franklin Street, yeah. I can't imagine living on that street because people kind of fly down that street.
It's a nightmare. We did some traffic data with little radars.
Yeah.
And traffic is faster coming into town than leaving town.
Jeez.
Believe it or not. And there's a high. I mean, Jeff and I knocked out 40. We clocked 40 cars. I mean, we're not issuing tickets. We was just doing a traffic data. We knocked out 40 cars within a couple minutes.
Jeez.
And that's one of the most busiest intersections. One of the top 3 here in Marietta that's that busy. Because you get traffic flow from Belpre, 550, you know what I mean, all out through there. So you're getting all
Harbor
that.
Hill.
Yeah, all that incoming traffic comes in that way. And now Main Street West is working alongside Sherry Ellum and the tool organization to just make it a better pedestrian, traffic, bicycling, safe measures. We're going to have some raised crosswalks. We're going to have some
idea.
demonstrations set up, not permanent.
Yeah.
These are just demonstrations because it's so critical for the folks. And if they're listening on Franklin Street, this is a time where they can get involved and give their opinion, because I can't tell you how traffic runs on Franklin Street because I don't live on Franklin Street. But I can tell you how well Franklin Street or how well traffic flows on Gilman because I live there.
Right.
You know what I mean? The people that know it best isn't by data, isn't by departments. It's the people that's sitting on their front porch having coffee every day.
Well, and trying to cross the street all the time.
Yeah.
You know, just to go shopping or, get to their neighbor's house or whatever.
And that's a main traffic byway right there. Franklin
I wouldn't
Street
want to have a kid on that street. Oh, man.
And that's a lot of residents have said that is, I'm not letting my kid cross Franklin Street because it's a madhouse, And they've took that light out, the traffic light. So now from Virginia Street to Putnam Street, it's like the Franklin Street 500.
Yeah. I believe it.
And, but luckily we're going to be working with Sherry Ellum to get some raised crosswalks and some demonstrations and getting input from the neighborhood about just how to make it better for not only traffic and pedestrians, but the neighbors that live there too, because they are my main focus because they live there,
Yeah.
And I think that was one of your questions is why am I so passionate?
Yeah, that was that. I don't know that we quite got to it. Where does your passion to help your community come from?
So to keep talking about that, I live there.
Yeah.
That's the thing is, when you live in a community, you can't just build a fence and hermit from it. You know what I mean? Because you're going to be involved whether you like it or not. And, people that are involved and engaged, statistically, it's proven that their property or land is not likely to get vandalized. So, not saying that you're a good person and your stuff will never get vandalized, but
right.
It's less likely to because you are so involved in their community. Jeff has made such an impact on the community because he's there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He's not saying come to my office.
Right. Yeah.
He's not saying
come to my house.
Yeah. He's saying, okay, come to my garden.
That makes sense.
Okay, we're having a cookout. Come have a hamburger with me.
Yeah.
There's a big difference in saying come to my office and come to my house.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Huge difference. Agree.
And I've never yet heard him say that to somebody. And, we keep jumping back to Jeff because he has set that bar so high of expectations. I've even told him the same thing myself is you've set that bar pretty high and now people are expecting, which is a great thing because I think the Main Street West should be in other communities. Not saying Main Street West should be, but other community organizations that want to, work in their community, shoot me a message. I'll tell you exactly how to get started and connect you to the right people that's interesting in making the city better.
Right.
I don't mind working in other neighborhoods, but I don't live there. So I can't give you an accurate, you know what I mean? I can't tell you what's best in Norwood because I don't live in Norwood.
Right.
I can only tell you what's best from my experience.
I think I do live in Norwood.
So
I actually just realized that the other day.
Yeah, and there's great people out there, I'm sure, that's listening and stuff that's, that wants to do something. But they have the what. They just don't know how.
Yeah, that's a tough step too. Especially when you think you're the only one who wants to make that change.
Yeah.
Another reason why I started the podcast.
And there is people, I thought like, okay, there's a handful of us that want to make the West Side great.
Yeah.
And then there's them people that has that stigma up and they're like, oh yeah, you're just a West Side kid and trying to make some noise here and there.
Yeah.
And then they see the progress and they're like, oh, you're doing absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I don't need you now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I needed you about a week ago to be sweeping these sidewalks and such. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's where I'm pretty cut and dry anymore is if you don't want to benefit the community, why are we talking?
Yeah, I get that. Yeah.
You know what I mean? If you're just here to complain, and not give me any solutions or any of your opinions on solutions, we're wasting each other's time.
I agree.
You know what I mean? And then you're not serious. You know what I mean? The only way you want to change, I had a resident, she's in a wheelchair, a scooter, and she reached out to me and stuff and was like, I'm just having problems getting into the park, Jackson. Like, I'm about to tip over, and things like that. Like, she's kept saying, I don't want to be mean. And I'm like, you are not being mean. Please tell me, give me all that.
Yeah.
I'm eating that alive.
Yeah.
Because you can take that to certain departments and certain individuals and be like, listen, if you don't believe me, I'll take you to her. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And things like that. And
yeah, and sometimes it almost takes someone like that to get changed. Because, like, if you're just a normal person, it's like, well, every time I walk into the park, I sprain my ankle on that horrible curb you have there or whatever. People are like, then step over it. Like, what is your problem? But the second someone's in a wheelchair, then, oh, wait, we should listen to this and make this change happen, which, yeah, we need a lot more in this town, And
I will say this, I'll give you a prime example of people just putting things that they don't know.
Yeah.
The pavilion in Franklin and Flanders Field.
Yeah.
That was a great idea, but there was a big thing missed when it looks great, looks beautiful, when people enjoy that.
Right.
But what they did when they built that, they took out the football practice field. There was football teams practicing in there.
Right.
And what you did was just built a pavilion on the 50-yard line.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Because there wasn't very much community engagement.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
And that's what you get.
Oh, absolutely.
Is a pavilion on the 50-yard line.
Yeah.
Or
that makes sense.
You got a pavilion half court. Things like that. Like, you have to to do things in a community, you have to be community engaged.
Yeah, I think you'll definitely get some, like, when you say this is our plan, and you give that plan to the community, then you're going to get, you get free everything. You get engineers who live in your community that are going to say, oh, that's a bad idea.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And they're going to step up and say, hey, I'm an engineer. You don't want to do this. This is why, it's free. Like, why wouldn't you put that out there for the community to help you with? Yeah. And that's why diversity works, and that's why it's amazing. You know what I mean?
And that's why Main Street West has worked so well. We have a melting pot of people, rich, poor,
yeah, I agree.
People intense, and they're all sitting at the table.
Yeah.
And I find that really powerful when they're all collaborating, because you have multiple walks of life, multiple opinions.
Right.
But they're both aiming at the same target, which is a greater goal for everybody. And when you have them all shooting at the same target, you usually knock it out of the park.
I agree.
And that's where the collaboration comes in, is you get folks that's willing to sit at the table and all work on that same puzzle together. And that's where I'm at with it, is I like to collaborate, and I don't look at people whether they're rich or poor. That's not something that jumps out at me.
Yeah.
I want you to be involved and engaged in your community, because frankly, you live there.
Yeah.
So, and until you start making changes, I'll listen to your complaints,
right.
But I won't be as fast to act on them, because you're not as fast to act on them, And with Jeff, I feel that's pretty much, he's going to help you to the best of his ability, but he's not going to do the work for you.
Right.
You know what I mean? You got to grind with him. You can't just grind. He can't just grind for you, because he's only one man, and I'm only one person that can do that. We're not going to grind for you. If you want a sidewalk replaced, you're going to help us get it replaced. We're not just going to look for Jeff and be like, hey, Jeff, can you do that good old boy favor, and we'll scratch your back and you scratch ours?
Yeah.
It's like, no, you're going to do the work.
Yeah.
You're going to watch, you're going to do the process.
I agree. And I got to wrap it up, just because we got to definitely wrap this up. But and that's probably a good note to end it on anyway. Nothing is going to get done by one person. Nothing. One task gets done by one person. I mean, that's simple as that. And, things that need to be changed in the community, road work that needs to be done, or, changing the way, the roads even travel through your town to make it safer and all that, which I've seen a number of places in this town that it could, be a little better. And I'm not an engineer, so, but I could definitely figure it out for them if they need me.
Your thoughts and opinions matter.
I agree.
Should matter to that engineer.
I agree. I agree. So, I'm going to have you back on soon, Jackson, because I can tell we've got hours to sit here and talk about.
We sure do.
We do. And I know you're doing amazing stuff for this town. It needs it. If you guys have heard anything that interests you, you can look up Main Street West.
Yeah.
Also, MOV Rebound for Kids is another program Jackson runs. Any other projects you're working on right now?
Just mainly the Franklin Street corridor. We have the levee, which is down by Gilman Avenue and Virginia Street. We're going to be focusing on a little more, and so we got some pretty interesting stuff. You can find us on Facebook. Shoot me a message anytime.
And if you want to contact me to get a hold of Jackson, that works as well.
Yeah.
We always talk. We'll definitely keep talking from now on.
Absolutely.
And hopefully be in a lot more contact.
All right.
Because I miss you, buddy. We ain't hung out in a while.
Yep.
All right, man. We'll close it up here. It's good talking to you.
You too.
We have a bunch of people watching. I got like 10 people watching.
Not to be personal, but and bring this up. I'm not being an asshole, but does the city of Marietta accept you? So if we're standing beside one another, I'm gonna look at you like Marietta. I see him white and you black. Do they judge you?
Oh,
we don't hang out in Marietta.
We don't hang out in Marietta, but I get asked all the time. I'm a hairdresser. Have been for 24 years in Belpre. I do hair all over, clear down to Racine and Charleston. And I always when I've told James this before, when they'll call in and be like, now I came in for a haircut last week, and that little Indian girl in the back, or that little dark complected girl in the back, I get that all the time.
Yeah.
So
I was just curious.
yeah. But I am mixed, so.